What's up YouTube, Eric here from Major League Trading. In this video, I'm actually going to be reacting to my own thought processes and things that were going through my head in real time with a trade that we took this week in UNH. And then at the end of the video, I'll walk through the why and the how and the what made me get into this trade. And then of course, you're gonna see the management here when we start playing this video. But just to give a little bit of context here, I posted on my Instagram story part of my position, which was buying the 280 and the 270 puts here in UNH. This was on Tuesday, and then coming in, and we held that obviously Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday we came in with this big gap down that you're about to see on the screen recording here, and it did a little something that I wasn't ready for it realistically. So as we get ready to play this, one of the things in which I had done was already put some orders in order to be able to get out of this position, or at least start taking some profits on part of the position right at the bell. And then that's where we ran into some struggles here. And so let's just play this video and get into it and kind of see where it goes from there. All right, there's the bell.
Oh, no, I'm not ready.
Markets are open.
I'm not ready. See if we can't get some of those off there, like 420s.
So when I say I wasn't ready, I didn't have all the orders in I wanted, is what I meant by that. And you can see now, you know, markets are open, we're moving, and my brain in this moment is paused. It's not computing. We're 30 seconds in.
What's happening?
So I'm going to pause the video for a quick second. So these bars are now 30-second bars. So we're a little over 30 seconds into the day, and I had alerts, or I had orders for the options in which I was in order to go ahead and take profits. And for some reason, the stock was open, but the options were not.
Market's open here. I'm not entirely sure. Like, we're not getting...
My brain trying to comprehend.
We're not getting any trades off on the puts at the moment. Like, huh? What the actual fuck?
It's got solid 350 on the 70s.
I got filled at some at 4s. Oh, baby. Oh, fucking baby.
It's fucking gold. They're $10 yesterday.
Good Lord, have mercy on my soul for the things I just did to UNH. Jesus. Oh, okay.
All right. So just to put a little bit more context to this, we had these options super cheap in retrospect to where they should have and were supposed to open here on Thursday, but I wasn't in. Well, I'll talk about this I think in a second if I remember the way in which everything played out. But I was trying to take a portion of that position off, and I honestly, thinking back through the trade and obviously watching back through this now, is like I wanted to take profits on those positions because we had them from like 20 cents and like 40 cents and some at 36 cents. We had a bunch of different fills, right? But they were like all sub 50 cents on our fills. And now they're currently trading at the time of this video anywhere between $5 to like $8 or more per contract, depending on the different strikes, right? Like they've made a massive move, but for like 60 seconds there, I was unable to take any of the position off. Like I didn't show any profits. There were no trades going off on the options, none of the things. And it really kind of threw me for a loop here. And so I had this whirlwind of like a roller coaster here. Like normally trading is just, hey, you get in the position, you chill, you let it do its thing. You take profits, cool, shake hands with the markets, you go on about your day. This one actually did get me a little bit emotional, and you can obviously hear it in the video here as well, with the fact that I couldn't get out of the position Then I got out of the position, and it was just a chaotic first 2 or 3 minutes of the day here. But let's keep listening.
We got focus up like we've been here before and we've done the damn thing before. That, I'll be honest, had me a little rattled initially because I don't know what or why the options market wasn't opening. Shit, I'm gonna sell some at 12. I'm gonna sell some at like 13. Oh, we still have some of those too, right? Oh, good Lord, have mercy. Fucking 13. We got some at 13. We'll take some off at 14. We'll take some off at like 15 and change. We'll take some off over here. Holy shit, I'm losing marbles. Are these the 270s? The 270s are at...
$9.
Good Lord. I want to take them off. Take them, take them, take them. All right, cool. All right. Well, shit. This is real-time action, folks. I'm down to one contract left on the 280s. I'm down to one contract left on the 270s, and I'm down to one contract left on the 270s in the other account. And holy shit, it's a day. What did I say? 262s. We're just gonna go ahead. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm sorry. We're trying here. Give me a second. I want to take some screenshots because holy shnikes. What's it doing?
What the fuck was that noise? Never made that noise before.
Okay, we're gonna try and flatten as soon as I can get some percentages here.
So I'm sitting here trying to take screenshots,
Beautiful, bro.
and we've come down to the target at 262.
I mean, here because you weren't, well, those people. Sheesh.
And we flatten in. Hold on, sorry. Trying to
Am I going to say anything?
all right, I am fully flat. Okay, sweet. All right, cool. I'm flat. Now we can focus up on some other things. And I took some screenshots. I didn't get the Robinhood one. Damn it. But yeah, we caught those for, at least at the time of the screenshot, they were 4,100% on the 270s, 3,700% on the 280s. But yeah, 5 minutes into the day. I don't normally get rattled like that, but the fact that the options didn't open was tripping me out. Damn. That was fun. That was fun.
All right, so there's the video and all that stuff there from UNH. So this was the day that we just watched here, which was this big gap down, and we entered this back here on Tuesday. So a couple thoughts just from listening back and rewatching the video here. Obviously, I did get, my emotions were definitely there and ready. They did play some factor, but at the end of the day, I did manage it accordingly to what my initial plan really was. And that plan, which sounds crazy, was on Tuesday, when we ended up taking this position. So, well, before we go into that, just thinking, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on my overall performance, if you will, from Thursday morning there. All things considered, I don't know that I've really been in the position like that where it wasn't letting me get out. Like there was no, and when I say that, meaning like the stock was obviously trading, we could see that from the recording, but there was no way for me, there was no market for the options in which I had on. So we just had this, massive move down, closed at 308. We're opening at 275. So, what is that, 33 points? Like it's almost a 10% move on the individual name, that UNH is gapping down on news, all of the things, right? So the fact that we were doing that, and then it wasn't, I expected right off the rip within the first like 1, 2, 3 seconds where it would be like, because I had orders stacked at like $4, $5, $6 on some of the 270s, and then I had like $8, $9, $10 stacked on a bunch of the 280s. So it's like I expected to just see, and hear the dings and get the order fills and be out of a good portion of the position, which was essentially going to be a little bit more than half, right off the rip at the open. And then my goal for the rest of it was to manage it into 262s, into 248s, and then into 230s. So looking back at my overall management here, was there definitely a little bit more I could have made? Did I make the right decision? There definitely was, right? The contracts ended up going, we dropped to 250s here. So they went another, $10, $15 lower from where I initially got the vast majority of my fills out at. But at the end of the day, I don't think that with the way in which it opened and all of the things, that I could have realistically handled that any better and just continued to hold the position, just because the risk reward wasn't really there. Like I had, I think on the 280s, I got some fills up at like $17, $18, and I was paying like 30 and 40 cents for these contracts 2 days ago, right? So how much more do I really want to make on this position? Or how much more can I really even make, right? I've already made $17 or $18 per contract. And am I really going to make another $5 or $10 per contract? How much more am I going to have to give back? So I went into a very protective mode state on that, and especially considering what happened initially off the open. So overall, I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace on that. Could I have managed it a little bit better? I think yes. But at the same time, like I posted on my Instagram story, and I'll throw a screenshot up here or whatever the case is, on my Robinhood alone, which is a separate account from my main toss, which you heard all the fills going off in that, I took $312 worth of risk in that account, and that turned into $7,788 on just the 270s. I only had the 270 puts in that account. I had the 280s and the 270s in my toss account with much more risk than just that 312. So it returned just about 25 times my return, or 25x my return on risk there. And it was a crazy, crazy move. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace on that. Could I have been a little bit less emotional, a little bit more patient with everything? Possibly, but I was as patient as I could be, considering I couldn't even get out. And realistically, the contracts were just moving so much, as we were dropping there. So, yeah, I'll give myself a little bit of grace on that, but hopefully that kind of, lets you guys see a little bit into the thought process. And normally I'm not like, I don't cuss like that or get like super excited on trades. But nonetheless, this one ended up being like that. So let's break down the why behind the trade though, right? Like let's take a look at this from just a bigger picture, kind of daily chart perspective. So when we look at UNH, I think somewhere back over in here, this might have been the Luigi situation. And then I think this might have been a gap down on earnings or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really have the news, and I obviously pay attention to earnings, but I don't really know what the news was around all this. But you can see we've dropped like, $600 to, like 330. So it's like, you can make the argument as, hey, this stock just got cut in half. Why was I looking to short this on Tuesday? Like, what was the thought process? What was the reason behind this? And there's a twofold answer. Number one is that while, yes, we had done this big move and we were currently down here at like 330s and we had the big gap down and all the things, right? I looked at this and I was like, hey, we cracked under this like kind of 440 area right here, which was pretty much, just pure technical analysis, support and resistance. Like we had kind of been in this area, for a while, right? And if we look and just kind of draw in a little rectangle here, you can see we kind of been down in this area, tested it a couple times. We did get the break higher. We came down on that news. We rallied from that, and then that immediately got rejected, right? And we've now gone through what would be that pretty decent support level at 440s, right? I would argue that was, at the time, a pretty decent support level. So as we're coming down through that, and mind you, we're like right in around kind of here when I take my entry. So I'll go ahead and just change this one to green for argument's sakes, right? So we're right in or down around here. Well, the thing in which I noticed about the 325 area was that we did have a little bit of support back over in here. And realistically, we had a little bit of support back up in here at 380s, which really didn't give us any, like, it didn't do anything, right? Even just looking at the weekly chart, doesn't even really look like it cared. So my thought process was, number one, super weak name, weekly chart, structure, everything is pretty much broken. So it's really open to the downside for wherever it wants to go, which would be, hey, kind of back to this 325 area, makes sense. It would also be kind of back toward, over in towards this area here at like 299s. And then it would also kind of be back to right over in here, which was that 277 area that I talked about in the in my Instagram story, basically like looking for an open beneath 277, which was going to be important. And then you can see the rest of these areas, 262, 248s, 230s, they're all basically the same type of thing here from a pivot standpoint, if you will. But they just happen to be over on the daily chart now, where we can start to see some of those types of moves and reactions and things that occurred from there, right? And we can see these larger kind of support areas that we were playing with, this kind of 325 area up in here and all these things, right? So I see all of those things. I see the weekly potential, which dream target was going to be 230. And the only real way I was going to be able to hold to 230 was if we opened at 230, honestly, right? Because the size of the move, how large the contracts would have gotten, and all of that, right? I really couldn't even hold past 262s, which was essentially the dream kind of first target, right? And then the real dream target is down into 230s. So that was my thought process. That was my thinking behind, just from a technical analysis standpoint. And then what we ended up having is something that we normally don't see, right? So we got this big gap down on Tuesday. And when we did that, I took a look at the options chain. And so obviously I don't have a position on in here right now. Everything I had was for this past weekend or this past week's expiration cycle. And when we look, at this, at the options contracts now, we look at the chain, the thing in which we can see is that there's strikes all the way down here to, 227.50s. And if I change this to 75 contracts, there's strikes all the way down to 190. And there might even, there's contracts all the way down to 130 and all of the things, right? Well, on Tuesday, when we got this gap down, the lowest possible strike available was the 270. So when I've seen cases like this before, where we're getting a large runaway move, whether it's to the upside or to the downside, and we're getting a big gap like this. I mean, we went from 380s down to 340s. That's a 10% or greater move, right? And by the time I took an entry and was paying attention and watching it, was further down here towards 325s, right? So I sold this thing in the hole. And we did sit through a little bit of pain, right? We gapped up on Tuesday or gapped up on Wednesday. And then we had to sit through that, and it just slowly started to bleed off into the close again. And then we got the big gap down, right? And we called this, the crazy part is that on Tuesday, I was like, hey, I've seen this before. We're probably going to close weak on Tuesday. We're either going to get a big gap down on Wednesday and get right into targets down there at like 277s to 262s, or they're going to gap it up on us a little bit on Wednesday. That's going to fade, and then we'll gap down on Thursday. All of these things were said on the mic, in Discord, people listening to me. So I'm not just coming back and saying it, right? This was all part of the plan. I didn't know that there was going to be news that came out on Wednesday about whatever it was, some Medicare, Medicaid, whatever the difference is, type of fraud thing, right? I don't care. The news, and people sent me DMs saying the news is fake, blah, blah, blah. The news can be as real as a unicorn. I really don't care. My thing was what the chart was telling me and what was potentially possible for this thing to move. And when I saw that, hey, we didn't have those strikes available any lower than 270, it made sense to me that we would just come down and test 270 at a minimum, given that that was the lowest strike in which we had. Now, they obviously added strikes on Wednesday, right? And they, I don't know where they went down to. They added a bunch of strikes, obviously. But on Tuesday, we didn't have that option. So it was the 280s and the 270s were the lowest in which we could, look to purchase at that time. And the only thing I can really relate to this is kind of GME. So you'll see this every now and then. But when you think about it and look at something like GME, this was a very, very short-term kind of similar situation. And it doesn't really quite do it justice anymore since the stock has split. But, this thing was running, in this example, it shows it running from $10 to $120. But realistically, it ran to like 400 and some change up here. And these moves were absolutely massive. And the same thing that ultimately ended up happening here, like on this day where we got this big gap up, that we ultimately ended up we had to get new strikes added. And then we were able to rally up and test those. Again, it was like 400 and something up at the highs. I don't remember all the split things and stuff like that. But this was virtually the same type of trade. I think, don't quote me if I'm right on this, 220 maybe was this gap or something like that. Anyways, it was a crazy, crazy move back then as well. And UNH just had very, very similar types of looks and features to it, with the overall pricing of the options and the fact that the options chain was going to essentially, it had an endpoint to it. And that was the main thesis behind it, right? A combination of the charts and the options and it getting a larger than what would be expected move, kind of taking the market makers overall market by surprise. And then that news just comes on there and it's kind of just a little gravy on the position in which we already had. So anyways, that's my thinking behind it. It turned into a really, really good trade. Overall, like I said, I think it was 4,100% on some of the on the 270s and like 3,800% on the 280s. And yeah, it just turned out to be really, really fun. Will we see another one like this? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping so, right? Of course. But we're going to have to wait and see, ultimately if markets set up and give us something else to do in here. If you're looking for kind of a long-term approach to UNH, we're kind of in the spot. Like it might come down and retest and trade 230s, but give or take, it's in a pretty decent area for a long-term hold. I'm personally not going to be looking to take any of my profits from this and dump them into long-term holds in UNH just because I'm not a huge fan and I really don't know all that much about the company, right? But I did know the technicals and I did know the things in which I saw and explained here in this video, and that's ultimately what led to the trade in which I had, right? And there's always two sides to every market. Someone's bullish here, someone's bearish. For me, I'm flat, I'm happy, I did my thing, and we'll move on to the next trade. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and something a little bit different, something I haven't done before. But please comment, subscribe, thumbs up, whatever all the things are down below. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. And as always, if you want to hear me ramble on like you heard in this video. Typically a little bit more concise and to the point and things we're doing in the markets, then there should be a link in the description below, and be happy to have you in the Discord. But until then, take care, hope it helps, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.